This is the new series I want to do. I remember 2 series for My Hero Academia. One for like the Kaminari one, and now for the Todoroki one. I want to do a different twist though with the Todoroki one. He's got an ice quirk. Basically the cold side of the half-hot cold quirk. Also he can manipulate into an ice ball, ice beam, which if you don't know the Pokemon attack, then yeah, whatever. He can also use a blizzard if he charges up his power enough. If he releases enough ice, he can create a giant blizzard and absolutely destroy them. He of course uses the ice spikes in the ice field. His ice is 10 times colder than Shoto's, actually like 100 times more colder. So once you get hit by it, you might die. Anything else? Yes, he does have manipulate. It's kind of like Gara Sand if you think about it. Except for the fact that when he shoots a sand wave, it's actually sand spikes. He's gonna have spiky white hair, because that's what ice wielders have. And let's just go into the UA entrance exam. Oh yeah, same age as Shoto Todoroki. Let's just go into the actual exam. So, when it starts, he instantly fly up in the air with his ice going and just skyrocketing to the sky, going yeah. Then you create an ice beam, freezing a robot, going. Everyone says some kind of ice quirk. Then he shoots out a blizzard, freezing 10 more robots, saying easy. Then creating an ice ball, which he throws up in the air, which is a constant blizzard, basically. So if he throws up the ice ball, it stops in midair. Then snow comes out of it to make the environment harder to use for them. Then he starts to create an ice path and then just glides around it going, boom. And Never is actually impressed and does train him, trying to get him to a fire resistance so he'll be able to say in case he's in a fire, he can easily overwhelm the fire with his own ice. Then once he hits a strong strike at him, hits a strong strike at the robot, he goes, like he breathes out ice kind of. And he does something that he's never done before, that no one's ever seen him do. He takes a deep breath and blows, and an ice wind comes and freezes another robot going. He says, ice breath? I've never seen that before. He's never seen ice breath before. Shoto's never seen him use ice breath. Shoto can't learn these techniques, it's only for a pure ice quirk wielder. Also, where do they get... I watched a video, and where do they actually get these quirk names? Do they just name them on the spot? Like, shouldn't they just think of a name? Like, Bakugo. Like, or did the kids choose them? Like, what, Bakugo calls his quirk Explosion? Why doesn't he call it, like, Explosive Palms or something? That sounds pretty cool, actually. Because he can only use it from his palms. So that'd be a cool name, Explosive Palms. And maybe, like, if someone had a quirk like Heat Palms, where their hand lights on fire, and then they can blast people with it. That'd also be pretty cool. Damn, why don't I use the... I mean, Explosive Palms kind of exists as a jutsu in Naruto, but the user doesn't actually explode. It's just them with explosive speed, hitting their opponents with palm strikes. That's basically what it is. It was in the Hozuki Castle arc, kind of. It's not really... It was in the Naruto movie Blood Prison. So, back to the entrance exam. He'd pretty much destroy the exams. And Shoto would pass, and he would too. When he gets home, he says, I'm home. Fumie says, so, how'd you do? He says, well, I discovered that I could use ice breath. He says, ice breath? He says, yep. He goes, freezing a chair. Then he touches it and then it he says, ah, dang it, I kind of wish I had an ultra fire. I wish I had a fire quirk with this. He says, Shoto, do you mind unfreezing this chair? He goes, fine. Then unfreezes it. He says, how'd you even do that? He says, frost breath. He says, yeah, I don't even know how you showed that at the entrance exam. I don't even know how you had that. He says, I just learned it. All I did was just use it randomly. Then, person looks in Endeavor's room and says, ah, great. He burned his room again. Soon he's gonna burn this house down. He says, Tadaima. Then he looks over and sees, what the heck is he doing? But then he sees Endeavor trying to burn down the house. Then he freezes it, going, can you stop? You're gonna freeze the damn house. And when you do that, where will we live after that? And then you'll have no one to blame for this. Then he stomps his foot, and then ice comes and freezes it. He goes, see, my own son's power is way stronger than mine. And he has an ice quirk. He goes, I'll never surpass all my... He says, is that all your goals, my guy? Like, seriously, like, put a different goal. Like, if you try also, wanna know the reason why you're weak? He says, what? He says, you're weak for another reason. He goes, what is that? He says, maybe the fact that you don't give a crap about anybody. If you had someone to protect, maybe you'd be much stronger, because you have a will. You want to do something. He says, maybe you should actually change a little bit, apologize to Shoto, and maybe Toya, whenever if he ever comes back, he's not dead, I know that. You can't fool me with that. He goes, I know I can't fool you with that. Toya, I don't know where you went. He says, if he ever does, you should apologize. He says, I also feel bad for Shoto. He says, why? He says, maybe the fact that when Shoto and me were babies, Toya tried to kill him. That was annoying. Also, I just read that from the manga. Actually, I don't read manga. I just found that on Plot Armor's YouTube channel. Also, that Deku has a black whip quirk, which is kind of cool. Wait, hold on! Bro, I don't think a lot of people realize, but that's kind of All For One's quirk. Because All For One had a quirk, you know those finger things that he had on his hand, where they shot out like metal things, metal bars, like metal whips or something? Yeah, it's kind of like that, I just realized. So that just gives us more plotline to what if Deku is All For One's kid, because it does kind of make sense. That gives me more reasons to say that All For One is Deku's son. I mean, All For One is Deku's father. That does make more sense than the theory that, oh yeah, War Arc of My Hero Academia, perfect. Just perfect. Just perfection. That was the best arc I've ever seen. Besides probably the Karma arc, the final arc of Boruto is going to be pretty cool. Hopefully it is. So back to this. Nani. With tons of training. Well actually no. He just go for his daily sparring with Endeavor because well he wants to. It's fun. He just loves to. When Endeavor shoots fire, an ice wall appears above him, blocking it, going shing. He says, "Dang it!" And his fire isn't even getting close to melting it. Then he traps him in an ice coffin. He goes, you know, like Gaara's sand coffin, except he freezes him with ice spikes around it. Then he burns it, finally melting the ice a lot. He says, well, that's good. He says, why did you give up on Toya exactly? He says, he was a failure. He had his mother's ice weakness. He says, he had his mother's fire weakness. He says, then why don't you just put him in a fiery area for a while and he keeps on using his ice quirk and he keeps on using it. Or just constantly put an ice pack on him so then he'll finally resist it. Or just 100% make him cold. I mean, Shoto, I have an ice quirk. If I was just born a little bit longer, this would have been so much easier. He says, yeah, that is kind of true. If you were born earlier, this would have helped. He says, well, that didn't happen, so yeah. So, back to the what if. So after the next day, the next week actually he'd get his results. He is going to UA. He goes, I'm going to UA. So is Shoto. I would want to put myself in like a different school, like not Shiratori. So that's from Haikyuu. I'd like to put myself in like Shiketsu High or like, what's that school called? I know Shiketsu High is the school that Kami and that Wind Dude go to. If you don't know who Kami is, that's that weird person that hid behind the rocks with Izuku, but that was actually Toga. Kami is the one with that illusion quirk, where she blows and then, you know, the rainbow stuff. So, once he gets in, they do introductions. The first one to go up is, he says, I'm Izuku Midoriya. He says, quirk, he says, he's quirkless. He says, no, I'm not, Kacchan. My quirk is upgrade. He says, it basically enhances my physical abilities, my strength, speed, durability. He's just using that as a code name for One for All. Then Shoto goes up. He says, I'm Shoto Todoroki. My quirk is half hot, half cold. He says, part of the Todoroki family. Next is, he says, I'm Katsuki Bakugo. My quirk is explosion. He shows a demonstration. Next is Ojiro. He says, my name is Ojiro. My quirk is tail. Next, Tenya Ida. He says, my name is Tenya Ida. My quirk is engine. Next is Hagakure. He says, I'm Hagakure. My quirk is invisibility. He says, next, you, grape. He says, I'm Mineta. I'm Minoru Mineta. Mineta Minoru. I don't know which way it goes. And my quirk is pop off. He says, alright, you, alien. He says, my name is Mina Ashido. My quirk is acid. The next is Momo. She says, my name is Momo Yajirozu. My quirk is creation. Next up is Tokoyami. He says, my name is Tokoyami. Tokoyami Fumikaze, I don't know. Fumikage. And my quirk is Dark Shadow. Who have I missed? No one besides Christian, actually. Then Christian looks up saying, I'm Christian Todoroki, and my quirk is Sub-Zero. He says, would you mind showing us a demonstration? He says, no, I'll freaking freeze everyone in this damn classroom. He says, fine. He says, it's about to get chilly in here. He throws up an ice ball. Bakugo says, ha, it didn't do anything. But then it starts to snow. Then he covers the entire thing in snow, saying, you were saying, dum-dum? He goes, why you? He says, look, shut up. Then he shoots an ice beam, freezing the back of the wall of the classroom. He says, not even Shoto can melt my ice. Not even Endeavor can. It took him about years to finally melt a small piece of ice. He says, okay. He says, oh yeah, I missed a couple of people. And then next is, my name is Ojako Uraraka. My quirk is zero gravity. Then next is Tsuyu. She says, my name is Tsuyu. Hi, I'm Tsuyu Asui. My quirk is frog. Give me a sec. Next is, he says, I'm Denki Kaminari. Nice to meet you. My quirk is electrification. Next, he says, it's Eijiro Kirishima. My quirk is hardening. Then next, he says, I'm Hantasero. Nice to meet you. My quirk is tape. Christian just a little bit of a demonstration that's kind of a basic quirk. He shoots it and Christian grabs it, saying, then he touches it going, what the, I can't get my finger free. Then he frees his hand and pulls it off. And goes, God, that is some extra sticky tape. You gotta give that a new nickname besides tape. He goes, I can't really think of a name. Christian says, how about Ultra Rat? He says, that doesn't sound too right, actually. Remember, oh yeah, also a part of Christian's quirk, he can freeze parts of his body. Like his foot for extra power. Like he can freeze his hand, create an ice punch, and punch someone in the face, and his hand doesn't break off. You know, like cause frostbite. His downside to his quirk is, if he releases so much ice, he could freeze himself. And trap himself in an ice thing, and no one can release him. Only Toya could. And then, yeah. The only person, oh yeah, Christian gave Toya a gift before he ran away. An ice bracelet that will never melt. And Toya still wears it to this day. AKA, we all know Toya's Dabi announcements of the manga. And how crapped on Endeavor got. And how Deku has a black whip quirk. That's insane. There's so much stuff that I didn't see in the My Hero manga. I didn't even know that the war concluded. And how Dabi tried to kill baby Shoto. Stupid. How Toya tried to kill baby Shoto. That's kind of sad. Probably because he was jealous. Next. So after that, I'm pretty sure, oh yeah, next is Yugi Aoyama. And that's all, and his quirk is Naval Laser. And I think that's all, and then Kyokujiro. Her quirk, of course, is Earphone Jack. Did I miss anybody else? I basically named everyone. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Whatever, I don't care. Then Aizawa introduced himself saying, I'm Shota Aizawa. Nice to meet you, my quirk is, you don't really need to know. Now it's time for your quirk test. You have to go into multiple tests. When Christian's turn, Christian freezes the ground below him and races, going, getting in there in less than 2 seconds, going, Bakugo is really mad. He says, how? Then goes to grab him, but then his feet are trapped in ice. He says, one more step from you and you'd get frostbite. He says, don't mind moving though. Christian also does have a fire quirk, but he doesn't know it. He's got a blue fire, which he can't use. That's why I lied. He has spiky hair, half of it is white, half it's blue. But for some reason he doesn't have a fire quirk. Then, out of nowhere, then is the ball throw. Christian throws it, and then adds an ice spike to push it even farther. But then when he does it, he goes, dang it! And slaps his head because it stabs right through the ball. But then Baku goes, ha ha! Christian says, baka! He goes, what did you say? Then he releases the ice, then the ball falls down, but then he creates an ice trampoline platform that bounces it, going, bow! He says, Aizawa says, well, that's some technical skill. Alright, I should never have said he had a quirk. So, after doing all the test, let's go on to the practical exam thingies. Like, you know, the double match. It's Christian and Todoroki. When it starts, they both freeze the building, going full on solid. Then Christian doesn't even want to. He says, let's wait for a while. This is fun. He goes, la la la, and just starts ice skating and going, shoo, but then he races, blitzing. Then going, then touches it, going, boop, we win. He says, nice try, guys. I really don't care about the other one. Now moving on to the USJ. When they're on the bus, they say, "Who do you guys think is the strongest?" He says, "In quirk-wise." Christian says, "Probably Christian because of that insane quirk of his." He says, "Oh, what about me?" He says, "Baku, bro, you may just have an explosion quirk, but yours is kinda gross." He has the most normal quirk. I mean, the most normal quirk here is probably Midoriya. Like, he's probably got the most normal quirk here, unlike y'all who are kinda weird, who got weird quirks. Midoriya's got super strength, super speed, and super reflexes. He's the only one with normal. I mean, Denki, you also have a normal quirk, because yours is lightning, yours is just electricity. Yours makes sense. Unlike Midoriya, unlike Christian's, who has fucking Sub-Zero ice! Who literally creates a giant ice peak that could literally be bigger than Mount Everest, probably. He goes, "Oh, thanks for the compliment, Kirishima." He says, "No problem." Then when they get there, a portal opens. Then they all get separated, but before Christian goes, he lets an ice ball up in the air, which floats all the way to the top of the USJ and sticks. And stays there. Then Christian gets sent to, like, the water area and freezes the water, so all the villains are trapped there. And then all the villains go, and they can't get out. Then Christian ice skates going, then he says, "Tsuyu, you might want to get back and hide." He says, "What do you mean, Ribbit?" Or Gero. He says, "Because it's about to get real cold in here, and I know frogs don't like cold." He says, "Just because my quirk is that doesn't mean it is." He says, "Okay, it is." He says, "Yeah, it is, actually." Then she goes to Then he says, "Deku, with your super strength, do you mind using a tiny bit of your power? Because I saw that your arms break if you use it. Mind using a tiny percentage of it and making a hole in the ground so you can hide?" He says, "No, I don't mind." Then he flicks a hole into the ground. Then Tsuyu hides in it. Then they dig it up and put it in, going boop, boop, boop. Then snow starts to fall above Shigaraki and all that. They say, "It's a US. We're inside. How is it snowing?" But then giant icicle spears start to crash, going. Dun, 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 dun. He goes, "What the?" Then snow starts to fall even more. And then it starts to get colder. Then an ice spark comes flying at him. He goes, "Dang it!" Then jumps to the left, getting cut by it, though. Then he's hit by below. Then he's hit with an ice punch to the face. Christian goes, "Yay!" He says, "How'd you like the snow?" Then he freezes. Then he shoots an ice spark that is so fast and strong, it's about to stab him, but Kurogiri warps him away. Alright, next to him he says, "Tomura Shigaraki, are you okay?" He says, "I'm alright, Kurogiri." Then he rushes at Eraserhead and goes, "Die!" Griffin says, "Nope," and just punches him in the face, going, boom. He goes, "Ah!" Then punching him far, far up into the air, and then he says, "How about I put you in a little torture?" He creates an ice ball and throws it up in the air. Then it opens up and traps Shigaraki in. Then it starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Making him freeze to death in that ball." He says, "You can't do that. It's not really hero-like." He says, "Fine." Snaps his fingers and it explodes. And then Shigaraki falls out. He goes, "Oh!" Then Christian doing the Goku thing when he did to Nappa, puts his hand up and goes, but then the Nomu rushes and then he freezes it, saying, "Really?" But the Nomu can't break out. Then he jumps up and kicks the Nomu's head off, going, boom! When All Might Rice sees this and says, "What the?" But then the whole thing is frozen, and then the whole body decomposes. Well, actually, just freezes down until it's nothing. Then it goes boom. He's like, Easily they're defeated. Easily the most defeated, and Shigaraki is too. Then Kurogiri warps away, saying, "We'll be back." But the mediocre villains are still there. They go boom boom. Then Todoroki does his signature line. He goes, 'Well, I couldn't find Todoroki's signature line, sadly. So, back to this. After the arc, then would come the sports festival. So, Todoroki would be like, "Oh my god, the sports festival." I'm kidding. That's what Deku would probably be like. So, let's just get on to the sports festival. Christian creates an ice path above Todoroki going, shoo. Much better for an ice skater than Todoroki. Then he goes, shoo. Then when he slides forward, Bakugo thinks that if he breaks the thing, it'll work. Then he breaks it. He breaks the ice thing, but then Christian curves down, going, boom. Then zips past Bakugo going, then making a first, going, woohoo! Going, ay, 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 ay. Next is the cavalry battle.
Yeah, but Mom's not gonna go till later.
So when he runs, so it's just him on a cavalry team. And that's all I want to do since we